The sky above Nexus 7 was always a beautiful shade of purple at sunset. Park Jin stood on the balcony of the colony's main building, watching the 3 small moons begin to appear. After 3 years on this remote planet, he still found the view amazing. "Administrator Park, may I speak with you?" Kim Hana walked onto the balcony. Her face looked worried. Park turned to face his chief science officer. "What's wrong, Hana?" The sensors picked up something strange. Large objects moving toward our system. She held out her datapad. Park looked at the screen and frowned. The dots were too big to be normal space rocks. "How long until they reach us?" 2 days, maybe less. Kim Hana pushed her short hair behind her ear. "And there's more. The Varine elders asked to meet with us right away." The Varine were the native people of Nexus 7. Tall, with light blue skin and 4 arms, they had welcomed the 50 Korean colonists when they first arrived. The aliens were peaceful and shared much knowledge about the nearby star systems. "Tell Lee Jun to meet us there," Park said. Security Chief Lee always said Park was too trusting of the aliens, but Park knew the Varine had been nothing but helpful. The Varine village was only a short walk from the human colony. The buildings were made of a strange crystal that glowed softly in the growing darkness. Elder Ven waited for them at the entrance. The old alien skin had faded to almost white with age. "My friends," Ven said, his voice like sand moving in the wind. "The time we feared has come." "What do you mean, Elder?" Park asked. Ven led them to the center of the village, where a large round table stood under the open sky. He placed his 4 hands on the table, and it lit up, showing a map of the stars. "The Dracarans are coming." Ven pointed to the moving dots on the map. "They are the hunters of worlds. They take what they want and destroy the rest." Lee Jun crossed his arms. "Why would they come here? This planet has few valuable resources." "They come for the Varine," said a female elder named Hala. "Our minds can see into the great beyond. The Dracarans want this power. And they will take your colony too," Ven added. "Humans are still new to the stars. The Dracarans will study you, then add your strengths to their own." Park felt cold despite the warm night air. "How can we stop them? Our colony has 1 small defense ship and basic shields." "You cannot stop them," Ven said simply. "But perhaps others can." The old alien led them to a small building at the edge of the village. Inside was a strange device. It looked ancient, with parts made of metal, crystal, and something that seemed almost alive. "This is a beacon," Ven explained. "One of the oldest in the galaxy. It does not send normal signals that any ship can hear. It sends a special call, one that reaches those who have promised to help." Kim Hana moved closer to the device, her eyes wide with interest. "Who would hear it?" "Those who remember what it means to face the end of their kind," Ven said. "Those who have sworn to prevent it from happening to others." Lee Jun laughed without humor. "Sounds like a fairy tale. I say we contact the Terran Alliance right now. They can send ships in a week." "We will not have a week," Ven said. As if to prove the elder's point, the ground suddenly shook. Park's communication device beeped urgently. "Administrator," a panicked voice called. "Ships have appeared in orbit. Dozens of them. They're not responding to our hails." Another shake, stronger this time, made dust fall from the ceiling. "They're firing on the colony shield." The next hours were chaos. Park, Kim, and Lee raced back to the colony to find buildings damaged and people running in fear. The colony's shields were holding, but they wouldn't last long under the heavy attack. In the command center, they watched the screens showing the Dracaran ships, massive black vessels that looked like giant insects. More kept appearing. "The shield is at 60%, a technician reported. "At this rate, we have 3 hours at most." Park made his decision. "Begin evacuation to the Varine underground shelters. They're built into the bedrock and should withstand the attack." "And then what?" Lee asked. "Hide until we starve." Park looked at Kim Hana. "What do you think about the Varine beacon?" She bit her lip. I don't know if it will work, but we have nothing to lose. The Alliance will view any unauthorized communication with unknown forces as treason, Lee warned. Another blast rocked the building. The lights flickered. Shield at 50%. Park straightened his back. We won't survive long enough to face an Alliance court. Kim, go back to the Varian village with a team. Study that beacon and make it work. Kim nodded and rushed out. Lee looked like he wanted to argue more, but instead turned to organize the evacuation. Park watched the Dracaran ships on the screen. He had led these colonists to this remote world for a peaceful mission. Now they might all die here. 2 hours later, the situation was desperate. Half the colony buildings were damaged or destroyed. The shield was failing in sections. Most colonists had moved to the Varian underground temples, which seemed to be holding against the attacks. Park and Lee stood in the now empty command center. The ceiling cracked and sparking wires hanging down. Last group is safely in the underground complex, Lee reported. Where is Kim? She should have reported back by now. As if on cue, Kim's voice came through on the communication system. Administrator, are you still in the command center? Yes. What's happening with the beacon? I think I figured it out. The Varians say it doesn't just send data. It sends feelings, emotions. It makes the receiver feel our danger. That sounds impossible, Lee said. So do mind-reading blue aliens, but here we are, Kim replied. I'm ready to activate it, but I need your authorization. Another blast hit nearby. The building shook more violently this time. Shield failure in sectors 3 through 7. The computer announced. Park looked at Lee, who reluctantly nodded. Do it, Kim. Activate the beacon. There was a pause, then Kim's voice again. Beacon active. It's strange. The device is pulling data directly from our colony systems. It's sending everything. Our situation, our location, even our biological data. How long until we know if anyone heard it? Park asked. The Varian don't know. Could be minutes. Could be never. The building shook again. This time, part of the roof collapsed at the far end of the room. We need to get to the shelters, Lee said, pulling Park toward the door. Now. They ran through the corridors as the bombardment intensified. Outside, the purple sky was filled with flashes of light as Dracaran weapons hit what remained of the shield. Park could see the enemy ships now, hovering like giant dark shadows. They were halfway to the underground entrance when Kim met them on the path. The beacon is working, she said, breathless. It's sending continuously. Any response? Park asked. Nothing yet, but the Varians say. A massive explosion cut her off. A Dracaran ship had landed less than a kilometer away. Smaller craft were flying out from it. They're sending ground troops, Lee said grimly. We need to hurry. The three ran to the temple entrance. Inside, the 50 colonists and about 200 Varian were gathered in the large central chamber. The walls were made of the same crystal as the village buildings, but much thicker. Elder Ven approached them. The temple will protect us for now. The Dracarans cannot break this stone easily. But they will eventually, Lee said. Yes, Ven agreed. Unless help comes. Park looked around at the scared faces of his people. They had trusted him to keep them safe on this mission. Now their lives depended on an alien device sending a call to unknown helpers who might not exist. The beacon, Park said to Kim. Can we tell if anyone has received our message? Kim checked her datapad. No way to know. It's still sending. The sound of explosions grew louder outside. The Dracarans were trying to find a way in. Elder Ven suddenly stiffened. His eyes, which had 4 pupils arranged in a square, widened. What is it? Park asked. Something is happening, the old alien whispered. Something. Big. Kim's datapad began beeping rapidly. She stared at it in shock. Administrator, she said, her voice shaking. I'm detecting massive energy signatures appearing near the planet. Hundreds. No, thousands of them. Dracaran reinforcements? Lee asked, his hand moving to his weapon. No, Kim said, looking up with hope in her eyes. They're not Dracaran. They're human ships. A new voice suddenly came through all their communication devices. It was calm, commanding, and distinctly human. This is Admiral Choi Sung of the Human Omega Fleet. We have received your distress call and are engaging the hostile forces. Hold your position. You are no longer alone. Admiral Choi Sung sat alone in his private room aboard the massive battleship *Vengeance*. The room was small and plain, with only a bed, a desk, and a single picture on the wall. The picture showed a younger Choi standing with other officers in front of a fleet of ships. That was 30 years ago, when they had won the war against the Corvins. For 3 decades, Choi had lived here, watching over the sleeping Omega Fleet. 12,000 warships hidden in the darkness between star systems. The Terran Alliance had ordered the fleet to be broken up after the war. They said such a powerful force was too dangerous. But Choi and others had fought to keep it intact, hidden away but ready. Ready for what? Even Choi sometimes wondered. The million soldiers who slept in cryo chambers throughout the fleet might never wake again. The ships might slowly break down as the years passed. But still, he kept his watch. A soft beeping sound broke the silence. Choi looked up, confused. No one ever called him directly except his second-in-command, Commander Yun-mei, and she would knock on his door, not call. The beeping came from a small black box on his desk, a box that had not made a sound in 30 years. Impossible, Choi whispered. His hand shook slightly as he pressed the button on the box. A red light began to flash. Then came the sound. 3 tones, high, low, middle. The emergency preservation protocol signal. The call they had all sworn to answer, but never expected to hear. Choi's door burst open. Commander Yun-mei stood there, her eyes wide. "Admiral," she said, "the fleet, it's waking up." Choi grabbed his uniform jacket and followed her to the bridge. The lights in the corridors, which had been dimmed for decades, were now bright. The few hundred crew members who had stayed awake to maintain the ships were running to their posts. The bridge of the *Vengeance* had been dark and quiet for years. Now all screens were on, showing the rest of the fleet. Throughout the vast empty space around them, running lights were turning on across thousands of ships, destroyers, carriers, dreadnoughts, and more. "The automated systems are working," reported an officer. "All ships report ready status." "The cryo chambers are beginning revival process," said another. "First wave of soldiers will be awake in 20 minutes. Commander Yoon looked at the screens in awe. "I never thought I'd see them all awake again." "How many ships are responding?" Choi asked. The bridge went quiet. Then the first officer answered. "All of them, sir. All 12,000. The protocol recognized this as a Level 1 emergency, an existential threat to an innocent species." Choi nodded and straightened his uniform. He had kept it perfect all these years. "The signal origin. A planet called Nexus 7, sir. Small colony, only established 3 years ago. 50 human colonists, native population of Varine." "Varine." Choi's eyebrows went up. "That can't be a coincidence." "Sir." Commander Yoon looked confused. "The Varine were nearly wiped out during the Corvin War. We saved them. They helped us build this fleet afterward as thanks." Choi's eyes narrowed. "What's threatening them?" "Ships matching Dracaran's signatures, sir. Over 100 in orbit around Nexus 7. Dracarans." Choi nearly spat the word. "Slavers and thieves. They take minds and bodies for their experiments." He turned to face his crew. Most were old now, with gray hair and lined faces. They had stayed when others left, believing in the promise they had made. "Send the response signal. Wake all crews. Prepare jump coordinates for Nexus 7. His voice grew stronger with each order. "The Omega Protocol is now in effect." Commander Yoon hesitated. "Sir, the Alliance Council." "The Alliance Council agreed to the protocol 30 years ago, Commander. They may have hoped we would never be needed again, but they knew this day might come. We answer the call. That is our purpose. Throughout the fleet, soldiers were waking from their long sleep. Men and women who had fought in the Corvan War opened their eyes to find they were needed again. Weapon systems that had been in standby mode for decades powered up. Engines that had been silent began to hum. On the Vengeance Choi stood on the bridge, now fully staffed with officers in pressed uniforms. They had all kept their uniforms ready, just in case. All ships report ready, Admiral, Commander Yoon said. Jump calculations complete. Choi nodded. Before we jump, send this message to all ships. 30 years ago, we made a promise. Today, we keep it. Someone has called for help. We will answer. Commander Yoon sent the message, then looked up at Choi. Jump on your order, sir. Choi took a deep breath. Jump. On Nexus 7, the situation was growing worse. The Dracarans had found the entrance to the underground temple and were trying to break through. The thick crystal walls were holding. But for how long? Park Jin, Kim Hana, and Lee Jun gathered with Elder Ven in the center of the main chamber. The other colonists and Vareen were watching them, hoping for good news. Are you sure you heard a human voice? Lee asked Kim. Yes, she insisted. It said they were the human Omega fleet, and that they received our call. There is no Omega fleet in the Alliance registry, Lee said, frowning. Perhaps there is much your people have not told you, Elder Ven said softly. Before anyone could respond, the whole temple shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. They're using heavy weapons now, Lee said grimly. Kim's data pad beeped again. She looked at it with wide eyes. Energy signatures. Massive ones, just outside our system. A loud boom echoed through the temple, followed by another and then another. But these weren't explosions. They were the sounds of ships exiting hyperspace, thousands of them. Suddenly, the sounds of Dracaran weapons stopped. The temple grew quiet. What's happening? Park asked. Kim stared at her pad. The Dracaran ships. They're turning away from us. They're being attacked. A new message came through their communication devices. Nexus 7 colony. This is Admiral Choi Sung. The Dracaran forces are being engaged. Your position is secure. I repeat, you are secure. Lee Jun looked stunned. Who is this Admiral Choi? And how did he bring a fleet here so quickly? Elder Ven's eyes seemed to glow slightly. The old Guardians have returned, just as was promised. In space above Nexus 7, a battle unlike any seen in decades was taking place. The Dracaran ships, which had seemed so powerful and terrifying to the colonists, now looked small compared to the human warships that had appeared. The Vengeance was at the center of the human fleet. It was 5 kilometers long, with weapons that could destroy a planet. Around it flew thousands of smaller ships, moving in perfect formation. On the bridge, Admiral Choi watched calmly as his fleet surrounded the Dracaran ships. They're trying to escape, sir, reported an officer, attempting to jump to hyperspace. Block their jump points, Choi ordered. I want their command ship captured intact. Commander Yoon stepped closer to Choi. Admiral, sensors are detecting Vareen life signs on the planet, along with human colonists. The Vareen, could they be the same ones? Yes, Choi said quietly. I believe they are, the ones we saved all those years ago. And now they have helped summon us to save others. The main screen showed the Dracaran ships being systematically disabled by the human fleet. It was not even a fight. It was a complete victory for the humans. Dracaran command ship has been captured, sir, reported the weapons officer. The rest of their fleet is disabled or destroyed. Choi nodded. Prepare a shuttle. Commander Yoon, and I will go down to the colony. What will you tell them? Yoon asked. About us, about the fleet. The Alliance has kept our existence secret for 30 years. Choi looked out at the stars, at his fleet now visible again after decades of hiding. I will tell them the truth, he said simply. That when the call for help comes, Humanity answers, "That is who we are. That is who we have always been." As the shuttle prepared to leave the Vengeance Admiral Choi looked back at his ship. For 30 years, he had wondered if the wait would be worth it, if they would ever be needed again. Now he knew. The call had come, and they had answered. The main chamber of the Varian temple grew quiet as everyone waited. Park Jin had told the colonists that help had arrived, but many still looked scared. They had been under attack for hours, and fear was not easy to let go. "Are you sure we're safe now?" a young colonist asked Park. Before he could answer, Kim Hana's datapad beeped again. "A small ship is landing near the temple entrance," she reported. "Human design." Lee Jun frowned. "I'll go meet them." "Stay here where it's safe." "No," Park said. "We go together. These people came to help us. We should thank them." Elder Ven stepped forward. "I will come too." The four of them walked through the crystal corridors to the temple entrance. The heavy doors, which had been sealed against the Dracaran attack, slowly opened. Sunlight streamed in, making them blink after hours in the dim temple. Outside, the purple sky of Nexus 7 was filled with ships. Huge ships, bigger than anything Park had ever seen. They floated silently, their metal bodies shining in the sun. The ground was scorched where the Dracarans had tried to break into the temple, but there was no sign of the enemy now. A small shuttle had landed about 50 meters away. Its door opened, and two people walked out. They wore dark blue uniforms that Park didn't recognize. The older man had gray hair and a serious face. The woman beside him was younger, with short black hair and alert eyes. Park stepped forward. "I am Administrator Park Jin of the Nexus 7 colony. Thank you for your help." The older man nodded. "Admiral Choi Sung of the Human Omega Fleet. This is my second in command, Commander Yun Mei." Lee Jun studied their uniforms. "I've served in the Alliance Defense Force for 10 years. I've never heard of the Omega Fleet." A small smile appeared on Admiral Choi's face. "That's because the Alliance decided it was better if most people didn't know about us." Elder Ven suddenly moved forward. His old body seemed stronger now, his blue skin glowing slightly. "The Promise Keepers," the old alien said, his voice filled with emotion. "After all these years, you have returned." Admiral Choi looked at Ven with surprise. "You remember?" "I was young then," Ven said, "when the Corvins came to destroy us, when human ships appeared and saved what was left of our people." Commander Yun looked confused. "That was 30 years ago. How could he?" "The Varine lived for 200 years, Kim explained. "Wait," Park said, trying to understand. "You're saying our alliance had contact with the Varine before?" "Not your alliance," Choi said. "Us, the Omega Fleet, 30 years ago, during what you call the Corvin incursion." He looked around at the temple. "We should go inside. There is much to explain." Back in the main chamber, all the colonists and many Varine gathered to hear Admiral Choi speak. He stood in the center, his voice strong and clear. 30 years ago, humanity fought a war against the Corvin Empire. They had already destroyed 12 species across this sector of space. The Varine were about to be the 13th when our fleet found them. Elder Ven stepped forward. "Only 10,000 of us remained. The humans fought the Corvins and drove them away. After the war," Choi continued, "the Alliance wanted to dismantle our fleet. They said it was too powerful, too dangerous. But the Varine came to us with an idea." Elder Ven placed his 4 hands on the crystal table. It lit up, showing images of human ships and Varine working together. "We have always been able to feel the pain of others across great distances," Ven explained. "We helped the humans build a special communication system, one that could send not just words but feelings. The Emergency Preservation Protocol," Choi said. "A way for any species facing extinction to call for help. A direct line to the Omega Fleet." Park looked confused. But why keep it secret? Why would the Alliance hide this? Politics. Commander Yoon said simply. After the war, the Alliance wanted peace. They didn't want other species to know humans had such a powerful fleet ready to fight. So they made a compromise, Choi added. The fleet would be hidden away. Most records of it would be erased. Only a small crew would stay awake to maintain the ships. The rest would sleep, waiting. Waiting for what? Lee asked. For the call, Choi said. The one you sent. A cry for help from those facing destruction. Kim Hana looked at her data pad, then at the huge ships visible through the crystal ceiling. How many ships do you have? 12,000 warships, Commander Yoon answered. With a full fighting force of 1 million soldiers. The colonists murmured in shock. Even Lee Jun seemed stunned. That's impossible, he said. The entire Alliance fleet is only 2,000 ships. The Alliance fleet is built for peace, for exploration, Choi explained. The Omega fleet was built for one purpose only, to answer the call. Elder Ven touched the wall, and new images appeared, ancient writing that transformed into Korean words. Our oldest records, Ven said. The promise made 30 years ago. When any innocent species faces extinction, the Guardians will come. Park read the words with growing understanding. All this time, the Varine knew about this fleet, but we didn't. Most humans forgot us, Choi said. That was the point. Your Alliance Council thought it better that way. A younger Varine rushed into the chamber. Elder Ven. The sky. Everyone looked up through the crystal ceiling. The space above Nexus 7 was changing. More ships were appearing, not human or Dracaran, but many different designs. What's happening? Park asked with alarm. Admiral Choi's face grew serious. The Dracaran command ship sent messages before we captured it. Word is spreading across the sector. Word of what? Kim asked. That the human Guardian fleet is real, Commander Yoon said. Not just a legend. Choi pointed to the new ships. Those are observers from 12 different species. They've come to see if the stories are true. Park looked confused. What stories? Elder Ven's eyes glowed with emotion. The story that when the call goes out, humans answer. That deep in the darkness between stars waits the most powerful fleet ever built, ready to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The Alliance won't like this, Lee Jun said, frowning. You've exposed a secret they kept for 30 years. The secret was kept too well, Choi replied. The Dracarans didn't know about us. That's why they attacked here. They thought they could take the Varine without consequences. Elder Ven placed a hand on Park's shoulder. Now they know better. Now everyone knows. Kim's data pad beeped again. Admiral, I'm receiving signals from those ships. They're trying to communicate with us. Choi nodded. Of course they are. For 30 years, these species have heard rumors of a human fleet that would come if they were in danger. Now they see it's real. Park looked around at his small colony, at the temple, at the massive fleet above, and at the gathering alien ships. What had started as a desperate call for help had become something much bigger. What happens now? He asked. Admiral Choi looked at his fleet through the crystal ceiling. Now the galaxy knows. The promise was kept. When the innocent call for help, humans answer. Commander Yoon stepped forward. Admiral, there's something else. The Dracaran prisoners. They're talking. They say they attacked here because they were ordered to. Why someone else? Someone else. Choi's eyes narrowed. Who? They don't know. But whatever it is, it wanted the Varine badly. Enough to send the Dracarans to take them. Elder Ven's face grew troubled. Then perhaps this is not over. Choi nodded slowly. No, I think it's just beginning. The next day, the people of Nexus 7 came out of the underground temple. The sun was shining, but the colony was badly damaged. Buildings were broken, and fields were burned. Still, the people felt hope. The huge human fleet still filled the sky above them. In what remained of the colony's main building, Park Jin sat with Admiral Choi, Commander Yoon, Kim Hana, and Lee Jun, They were looking at the Dracoran prisoner on the screen. The alien had gray skin and 4 yellow eyes. It looked angry and afraid. "Tell us again," Admiral Choi said firmly. "Who sent you to attack this planet?" The Dracoran hissed. "We do not know their real name. We call them the Masters. They find worlds for us to take. We keep some of what we find and give the rest to them." "What did they want from Nexus 7? Park asked. "The Mind Seers," the Dracoran said, meaning the Vereen. "The Masters said their powers were growing too strong. They said to bring some for study and kill the rest." Kim frowned. "But why? The Vereen are peaceful." "The Masters fear them," the Dracoran said. "They fear those who can see across space with their minds." Li Jun looked skeptical. This could be a lie to save themselves. Admiral Choi shook his head. "I don't think so. This matches what happened 30 years ago. The Corvins attacked the Vereen for the same reason. Fear of their mental powers." Commander Yoon turned off the screen. "Could these Masters be connected to the Corvins?" "Possibly," Choi said. "But the Corvins were defeated." "Were they?" Elder Ven asked, entering the room. "Or did they just hide, like your fleet did?" The humans looked at each other. The idea was troubling. Kim's data pad beeped. "Admiral, we're getting a message. It's from the Terran Alliance Council." Choi's face showed no surprise. "That was fast. Put it through." The screen lit up again. A stern-looking woman in an Alliance uniform appeared. "This is High Counselor Ba of the Terran Alliance. Admiral Choi Sung, you have violated the Omega Protocols by revealing your fleet. Explain yourself." Choi stood straight. "Counselor, we received a distress call under the Emergency Preservation Protocol. We responded as we were designed to do. The protocol required secrecy," Counselor Ba said angrily. "The protocol required us to answer the call," Choi corrected, "which we did. You've exposed a military asset that was meant to remain hidden." Park Jin stepped forward. "Excuse me, Counselor. If they had not come, 50 human colonists and the entire Vereen species would be dead or enslaved now." The counselor looked uncomfortable. "Of course we value your lives, Administrator Park, but the Omega fleet was our last defense, our final option in case of a galactic-level threat. Now that secret is gone." "Perhaps," Choi said calmly, "it was a secret kept too well. The Dracarans attacked because they didn't know such a force existed. Now they do, and so do others." Counselor Ba frowned. "The Council will need to discuss this. Admiral Choi, you are ordered to bring your fleet back to hidden status immediately." Choi was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "No. No." The counselor looked shocked. "That is a direct order. The Omega Protocol gives me full command authority when a call is answered," Choi said. "And this situation is not over. The Dracarans were sent by someone else, someone who specifically targeted the Vereen." The counselor's face grew red. "You cannot just." "I can, and I will," Choi interrupted. "For 30 years, we kept our promise while you tried to forget we existed. Now the promise has been called in. We will see it through to the end." He cut the connection before the counselor could respond. Li Jun looked worried. "You just refused a direct order from the Alliance Council." "I did," Choi agreed. "And I would do it again." Later that day, Admiral Choi asked Park, Kim, and Lee to join him on the Vengeance *. They took a shuttle up to the massive ship. As they entered the main hangar, they were amazed by its size. Hundreds of smaller ships and thousands of soldiers moved about with purpose. "This is incredible," Kim said, looking around with wide eyes. "I had no idea humans had built something this big." "The Alliance didn't build this," Commander Yoon explained as she led them through the ship. "The Omega fleet was built in secret, using technology shared by the Vereen and other species we saved during the Corvin War." They reached the bridge, where officers worked at many stations. The main screen showed the space around Nexus 7. Dozens of ships from different alien species were now in orbit, watching. "Why did you bring us here?" Park asked Admiral Choi. Because you need to understand what's happening, Choi replied. This isn't just about your colony anymore. The call you sent has changed everything. He pointed to the screen. For 30 years, many species in this sector have heard stories about a human fleet that would come if they were in danger. Most thought it was just a legend. Now they see it's real. And that's good, right? Kim asked. It's complicated, Commander Yoon said. Some will be happy to know they have protection. Others might see us as a threat. Choi nodded. And whoever sent the Dracarans now knows we exist too. If they truly are connected to the Corvins, they will not be happy. A young officer approached. Admiral, we've decoded more of the Dracaran communications. We found coordinates for their base. Choi's eyes narrowed. Where? The Vega Nebula, sir. On the edge of what used to be Corvin space. The bridge went quiet. Choi and Yoon exchanged looks. What does that mean? Park asked. It means, Choi said slowly, that our old enemy might not be as defeated as we thought. He turned to face the three colonists. I brought you here to ask for your help. The Alliance Council wants us to disappear again, to hide. But I believe that time is over. What are you planning to do? Lee asked. First, I'm going to send ships to that Dracaran base. I need to know who these masters are. And then, Park pressed. Choi looked out at the stars. Then I'm going to do what the Omega fleet was built for. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. But to do that, I need allies. I need voices who will speak for us. Kim understood first. You want us to tell our story. About how you came when we called. Yes, Choi said. The Alliance kept us secret because they feared what other species would think. But they forgot why we were created in the first place, to answer the call. Lee Jun frowned. This sounds like you're breaking away from the Alliance. No, Choi shook his head. I'm reminding them of a promise they made. A promise to stand against extinction, no matter what. Park looked troubled. Our colony was supposed to be about peaceful contact with new species, not war. Sometimes, Commander Yoon said gently, you must be ready for war to keep the peace. Admiral Choi turned to Park. When you sent that call, you did more than save your colony. You reminded us of who we are, the guardians who answer when no one else will. A new alarm sounded on the bridge. An officer called out, Admiral, we're detecting a large energy signature at the edge of the system. Something big is coming. On the main screen, a swirling portal of light appeared. From it emerged a single ship, larger than even the asterisk Vengeance asterisk, black and sleek. Identification, Choi demanded. Unknown design, sir, but it's broadcasting on a Corvin frequency. Helder Ven, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. His eyes were wide with fear. They have come, he whispered. The Masters. The ones who sent the Corvins 30 years ago. The ones who sent the Dracarans now. Choi's face hardened. All ships, battle stations. Protect Nexus 7 at all costs. He turned to Park, Kim, and Lee. Now you see why the call was so important. This was never just about your colony. This was about finishing what started 30 years ago. Park looked at the massive enemy ship, then at the human fleet moving to protect them. What do we do? He asked. You did your part, Choi said. You called for help when you needed it. Now we do ours. Commander Yoon added, that's what humans do. We answer when called. As the massive ships moved into position, Admiral Choi looked at the enemy vessel with determination. The call for help summoned us, he said, and we will not fail to answer.